Chapter 6. The Storm Within. The office lights cast a sterile glow against the glass walls, but inside Sorin's office, the air was thick with something far heavier than silence. Marinette's pulse pounded in her ears. Sorin Sterling stood before her, his hands still beneath her chin, his touch barely there yet enough to set her entire body on edge. But it wasn't the closeness that made her breath hitch. It was the look in his eyes. A storm, violent and unrelenting. You're part of this now. His words clung to her skin like a second heartbeat. That's not fair, she whispered, pulling away. A muscle ticked in his jaw. It's not about fairness, Marinette. It's about reality. And your reality just changed. She shook her head, trying to process it all. I didn't ask to be dragged into this, Sorin. I didn't ask for... You went looking for answers, he cut in, voice sharper than before. You don't get to be angry about finding them. Her stomach twisted. Damn him for being right. She had gone looking, and now she had found something that couldn't be unseen. Sorin stepped back, running a hand through his dark hair, the first visible crack in his usual controlled composure. This isn't just about Alexander Laurent's death, Marinette said carefully. It's about something bigger, isn't it? His gaze flickered, and in that moment, she knew. Sorin wasn't just tangled in a scandal from 5 years ago. He was still living in it. Marinette folded her arms. Tell me the truth. A long silence stretched between them. Then, with a slow exhale, he walked over to the sleek bar cart in the corner of his office and poured himself a glass of whiskey. But he didn't drink it. Instead, he gripped the edge of the cart, staring at the dark amber liquid like it held all the answers in the world. Then he said, There was no accident. Marinette stiffened. Sorin's voice was quieter now, almost haunted. Alexander Laurent was murdered. The air drained from the room. Marinette's throat went dry. Murdered? His grip tightened on the glass. And I was the reason why. The words sent an icy bolt through her spine. Because Sorin Sterling, cold, ruthless, untouchable Sorin Sterling, wasn't a man who admitted weakness. And yet here he was, confessing the kind of thing that could ruin him. She took a slow step forward. Who did it? His jaw clenched. The same people who are watching me now. The weight of those words crashed down around her. He wasn't just being haunted by the past. The past was still here, still breathing, and if she wasn't careful, it would swallow her too. Marinette barely made it back to her apartment before the storm outside broke loose. Rain lashed against her windows, the city drowning under the weight of thunder and howling wind. She sat curled on her couch, knees drawn to her chest, Sorin's words looping through her mind. Alexander Laurent was murdered. The same people who are watching me now. Was that why he had warned her to stay away from him? Was that why that man at the gala had whispered riddles into her ear? She ran a hand through her hair. She should stop this. She should walk away. But she already knew she wouldn't. A knock on the door made her jump. Marinette's pulse spiked. She hesitated before standing, crossing the room slowly. She looked through the peephole, and her breath caught. Sorin, soaked from the rain, his suit jacket discarded, his usually neat hair disheveled. But it wasn't his appearance that made her chest tighten. It was his expression. Something had cracked. Something was wrong. Without thinking, she unlocked the door and pulled it open. He didn't speak, didn't move, just stood there, his storm gray eyes holding something raw. Sorin, she whispered. Still, he said nothing. Then, after what felt like an eternity, he exhaled sharply and walked inside. Marinette shut the door behind him, her heart hammering. For the first time since she had met him, Sorin Sterling looked tired. Like the weight of his entire world was crashing down on him, and somehow she was the only place he could go. Marinette handed him a towel, but he barely acknowledged it. Instead, he ran a hand down his face and let out a quiet laugh. But it wasn't amused. It was hollow. Do you know what the worst part of all of this is? He murmured. She didn't answer. He looked up at her then, and what she saw in his gaze made her chest ache. It never stops, he said. No matter how much I build, no matter how ruthless I become, the past is still there, waiting to destroy everything. Marinette swallowed hard. Then why do you keep running from it? His gaze darkened. Because the alternative is worse. A bitter silence stretched between them. Then something shifted. Something fragile. Sorin closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, the storm inside them had changed. He took a slow step toward her, then another, until they were standing so close she could feel the heat of him, despite the rain still clinging to his clothes. "You should have never helped me that night," he murmured, voice barely above a whisper. Marinette's breath caught, because there was no anger in his tone this time, just something devastatingly quiet. "You should have never let me in," he continued. His fingers brushed against her wrist, a ghost of a touch, hesitant. And yet, it sent something electric through her veins. Her throat tightened. "Then why did you come here?" Sorin didn't answer right away. Instead, he let his gaze drop to her lips for the briefest moment before pulling back, his jaw tight. Then, with a slow, bitter smile, he whispered, "Because I don't know how to stop." And neither did she. The storm outside raged on, but inside her apartment, something else was brewing. Something deep. Something dangerous. Marinette knew this was reckless. That Sorin was a man wrapped in secrets and shadows. But in that moment, none of it mattered, because Sorin Sterling wasn't invincible, he wasn't untouchable, and somehow she had become the only crack in his armor. So when he finally reached for her, she didn't pull away. And when he kissed her, slow, desperate, like he was trying to memorize the taste of something he could never have, Marinette let herself fall. Even though she knew this was just the beginning of something dark, of something dangerous, of something neither of them could ever come back from. Chapter 7. Shattered Trust, Unspoken Love. The morning after the storm, Marinette woke up alone. The space beside her on the couch was empty. The only sign that Sorin had been there at all was the faint scent of rain and whiskey lingering in the air. She sat up, rubbing her temples, trying to push away the ghost of his touch, the taste of him still imprinted on her lips. She should have known he would leave. Sorin Sterling was not a man who lingered, not when he had let himself slip, not when she had seen him without his armor. A sharp knock at the door snapped her from her thoughts. Her stomach clenched. It couldn't be him. She stood, crossing the room cautiously. When she peeked through the peephole, her pulse spiked. Not Sorin. The man from the gala. A slow, suffocating dread curled around her ribs. She hesitated before unlocking the door, forcing herself to keep her expression calm. "Can I help you?" The man, tall, crisp suit, shark-like smile, tilted his head, amusement flickering in his dark eyes. "You should be more careful about who you let inside, Miss Delaire," he murmured, her fingers curled into fists at her sides. "What do you want?" He took a slow step forward, just enough to close the space between them. A friendly warning. "You've gotten too close to something you don't understand." Marinette refused to back down. "And what exactly do I not understand?" His smile widened. "That you're a weakness, Miss Delaire." Her chest tightened. "And men like Sorin Sterling," the man continued, lowering his voice, "do not get to have weaknesses." The unspoken threat in his tone sent ice through her veins. She swallowed hard. "If you're trying to scare me, it won't work." His smile didn't falter. "No, I don't think it will." He slid a small, sleek envelope from his coat pocket and held it out to her. She hesitated before taking it. "Be careful," he murmured. "Even unspoken love can get people killed." And with that, he turned and walked away, disappearing down the hallway. Marinette stared at the envelope in her hands. Then, with shaking fingers, she tore it open. And what she saw inside made her breath catch. Marinette sat at her small kitchen table, staring at the photographs spilled across the surface. They were old, some black and white, others grainy, but one thing was clear. They were all of Sorin. Sorin with Alexander Laurent laughing over drinks. Sorin standing beside a group of powerful men, his expression unreadable. Sorin with a woman. Her heart skipped. The last photo was the most damning. It was Sorin, younger but unmistakable, his arm around a woman's waist, his head tilted toward her in the kind of intimacy that couldn't be mistaken. And written in bold ink beneath the photo, Catherine Laurent. Marinette's stomach twisted. Laurent, as in Alexander Laurent, as in Sorin's murdered mentor. Her pulse thundered. The man at the gala was right. She didn't understand everything, but now she had no choice but to find out. The moment Marinette walked into the Sterling Enterprises building, she felt it. The shift in the air, the weight of something unspoken. Employees cast her fleeting glances, whispers trailing in her wake. She barely made it to Sorin's office before Evelyn stopped her. "He's not seeing anyone today," Evelyn said, eyes flicking toward the documents in Marinette's hand. "And I suggest you." Marinette pushed past her. She didn't care. She threw open the door without knocking. Sorin was standing near the window, his back to her, shoulders tense. "You left?" she said, voice sharp. He didn't turn around. "You expected me to stay?" Marinette's grip tightened around the photos. "I expected you to tell me the truth." His shoulders stiffened. "You already know too much, Marinette." She let out a bitter laugh. "Not enough, apparently." Sorin finally turned, his storm-gray eyes meeting hers. But this time, they weren't just cold. They were exhausted. She tossed the photo onto his desk. "Catherine Laurent." The muscle in his jaw flexed. "Tell me she's not what I think she is," Marinette said, her voice breaking at the edges. Sorin exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair. Then, finally, "She was my fiancée." Her breath hitched. The words hit her like a blade. "I was engaged to Catherine," Sorin continued, his voice low, almost haunted. "And the night Alexander was murdered, she disappeared." Marinette's heart pounded. "You never told me," she whispered. He let out a bitter chuckle. "Because I knew what you would think, that I killed him for her, that I covered it up for her." Her silence spoke volumes. His gaze darkened. "Do you think I did it, Marinette?" The question sent a shiver down her spine, because the truth was, she didn't know, and that realization shattered something deep inside her. Sorin took a slow step forward, eyes locked onto hers, voice raw. "I never wanted you in this," he murmured. "I warned you to stay away." Her throat tightened. "Then why did you come to me last night?" His fingers curled into fists. "Because you're the only thing that makes me feel like I'm not drowning," he admitted. A sharp, aching silence. Something inside Marinette fractured, because she knew the truth. Sorin might have been ruthless, he might have been tangled in secrets, but the way he looked at her now, like she was the only real thing left in his world, that wasn't a lie. Her voice was barely a whisper. "You don't trust me." Sorin's jaw clenched. "I can't trust anyone, Marinette." And that was what broke her. Not the secrets, not the danger, but the fact that despite everything, despite whatever this was between them, he would never let her in. Her heart ached, so she did the only thing she could. She turned and walked away, and this time Sorin let her go, even though they both knew neither of them would ever be the same again. Chapter 8, Love Won in Fire. The city burned with the glow of neon and headlights, but Marinette only saw shadows. She walked without direction, her heels clicking against the wet pavement, her thoughts a hurricane inside her skull. She had left Sorin standing in that office, left behind his secrets, his lies, his refusal to let her in. But her heart? That she hadn't been able to take with her. Sorin had kept it. Even now, as doubt clawed at her ribs, she still felt the imprint of his hands on her skin, the ghost of his whispered confessions in the storm. "You're the only thing that makes me feel like I'm not drowning." Yet he had let her go, no fight, no chase, because he didn't trust her. And maybe, just maybe, that was why she could never trust him either. The city pulsed around her, alive with noise and motion. But then, a shadow moved. Marinette's steps faltered. Her pulse spiked. She wasn't alone. A chill slid down her spine, and she turned just as a figure emerged from the darkness. The man from the gala. His smile was a blade, sharp and knowing. "I told you, Miss Delaire. Unspoken love gets people killed." Before she could move, a hand clamped around her wrist, and everything went black. She woke to the scent of damp concrete and gasoline, a warehouse. Her wrists were bound to a chair, the rope biting into her skin. A dull ache throbbed at the back of her head, footsteps echoed. Then, finally awake, the man stood a few feet away, hands in his pockets, amusement dancing in his dark eyes. Marinette forced herself to stay calm. "What do you want?" "Leverage." She stiffened. His smile widened. "Do you know why Sorin Sterling has survived this long, despite the enemies he's made?" She said nothing. "Because he has nothing to lose," the man continued. "You, Miss Delaire, change that." Her blood ran cold. He leaned in. "I wonder, how far would Sorin go to get you back?" Her heart thundered. "You won't get the chance to find out." His smile faltered, because in that moment a new sound filled the air, a low, menacing growl of an approaching engine, and then gunfire. The man cursed, pulling a gun from his coat just as the warehouse doors exploded inward, and there, framed in the chaos, Sorin. His eyes were pure fire, pure fury. And in that moment, Marinette realized something bone-deep and unshakable. He hadn't let her go. He had been chasing her this entire time. The room erupted. Sorin moved like a storm unleashed, his fists colliding with bodies, his men taking down anyone who got in their way. Marinette struggled against her restraints, heart hammering. A shot rang out, too close. The man lunged for her. Marinette twisted at the last second, slamming her chair into his legs. The impact sent them both crashing to the ground. Marinette! Sorin's voice, sharp, panicked. She looked up just in time to see the gun aimed at her head. But before the trigger could be pulled, Sorin was there. One shot. The man staggered back, eyes wide with shock. Then he crumpled. Silence. And then Sorin was kneeling before her, his hands shaking as he untied the ropes, his touch gentle despite the violence still crackling in the air. Are you hurt? His voice was rough, breathless. She shook her head, still dazed. Sorin's fingers brushed over her cheek, his jaw tight with barely restrained emotion. You shouldn't have come, she whispered. His laugh was hollow. I told you before, Marinette. I don't know how to stop. Her chest ached. And suddenly, none of it mattered. Not the secrets. Not the danger. Because Sorin had come for her, and that was the only truth she needed. They didn't speak on the drive back. Sorin's grip on the wheel was white-knuckled, his jaw locked. The weight of what had just happened hung between them, thick and suffocating. Marinette studied him in the dim light. His hands had shaken when he untied her. Sorin Sterling never shook, and that was when she realized this wasn't just about saving her. He had been afraid. For the first time, Sorin had truly been afraid. She swallowed hard. Sorin, he exhaled sharply, pulling the car to an abrupt stop. The next thing she knew, he was turning toward her, his hands cupping her face, his eyes burning into hers. You almost died tonight, he said, voice low, ragged. Her breath hitched. But I didn't. His fingers trembled against her skin. You don't understand, he murmured. I can survive everything, the past, the enemies, the goddamn ghosts that haunt me. His thumb traced her jaw, slow, reverent. But I cannot survive losing you. Her heart stopped. Tears pricked at her eyes. Then don't lose me. Something broke in his gaze, and then Sorin kissed her. It wasn't like the first time. It wasn't slow, hesitant. It was fire. A war, a surrender, a promise wrapped in heat and desperation. Marinette melted against him, her fingers tangling in his hair, pulling him closer, anchoring him to her. Because despite everything, the secrets, the blood, the danger, Sorin Sterling had chosen her. And this time, he wasn't letting go. Epilogue. The morning sun filtered through the curtains, casting golden light over tangled sheets and quiet breaths. Sorin stirred beside her, his arm draped over her waist, his face buried in the crook of her neck. Marinette traced the ridges of his knuckles, feeling the weight of everything they had survived. Sorin was still a man of shadows, but now he was her shadow, and as he pulled her closer, his lips brushing over her temple, she knew this wasn't the end, it was only the beginning. The end. Make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for the next chapter of their journey. You won't want to miss what happens next because the fire is only just beginning to burn.